From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Making a difference in the dairy barn.
His positive attitude, willing to learn, willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
We honored this year's Milk Business Employee Excellence Award winner. Cash cattle prices soar as the popularity of one dairy item skyrockets.
It's all over the country, but the largest share of the new infrastructure is in that I-29 corridor stretching south all the way into Texas.
We focus on the demand for cheese this morning on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Put Pioneer brand corn's exclusive genetics on your team. Win with higher yields and industry-leading traits. Pioneer brand corn. Your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Michelle. Clinton is on assignment at this year's Milk Business Conference in Las Vegas, where optimism is running high right now. And a lot of that is thanks to one dairy product. Clinton joins me, and Clinton, Americans really love cheese these days.
Well, the dairy industry is optimistic heading into 2025 following good milk prices in 2024. Now, much of that optimism is underpinned by strong cheese prices and good consumer demand. The latest USDA numbers show that cheese consumption reached historic highs in 2023. According to the latest data, Americans ate 42 pounds of cheese per person in 23, and over the last decade, cheese consumption has grown by nearly 20%. Now, that demand has spurred an increase in new plant construction and billions in investment.
It's all over the country, but the largest share of the new infrastructure is in that I-29 corridor stretching south all the way into Texas. And, you know, the question I get asked a lot is, where are we going to get all this milk? Well, we are going to shut some plants down, and there's been announcements of closures, and that, you know, will change the, you know, the landscape and, you know, the final zip code that milk, you know, finds a home in. But reality of it is these new plants have greater efficiencies that we don't have in some of these other plants that are going to be ultimately sunset and shuttered.
North says improved efficiency is going to mean more cheese and a need for less milk.
We'll be able to make more product with fewer cows. And so, you know, this is something that we need to look at every time we go through big up cycles and, you know, we develop new infrastructure like this.
It's also why the dairy industry is working closely with food companies and restaurants to make sure that extra cheese has a home.
You know, in the short term, there's probably going to be a little more cheese than there is demand. So that's what one of the things we try to do is who can we partner with to make sure we're moving cheese so it doesn't negatively affect our farmers.
Paul expects about a 3-year adjustment to include that extra cheese.
There's a window of short term where you may have a little bit of an excess, but longer term it's still looking pretty good based upon the economic side.
Michelle, the dairy industry is a big believer in the American consumer, which is why dairy consumption has increased 16% over the past 30 years.
Thanks so much, Clinton. So what could milk production look like over the next 10 years? USDA recently released its latest projections. Its baseline projections show growth in all categories. DairyHerd.com reporting cow numbers are projected to steadily increase, with numbers estimated to reach more than 9.5 million head in 2034. Milk production is projected to increase from 225.8 billion pounds this year to 253.1 billion pounds in 2034. Now that would be an average growth of 2.73 billion pounds per year, with milk production per cow moving from more than 24,000 pounds this year to more than 26,000 pounds at the end of the 10-year period. And the all milk price is projected to average $25.58 per hundredweight by then. November brought some improvements to the drought monitor. Forecasters report while October saw drought conditions worsen, last month saw conditions ease slightly. Right now, almost 44% of the nation is in drought. That's up slightly from last week, but things haven't changed much so far in December. Extreme drought now covers large areas of the northern plains. That includes parts of Montana, the Dakotas, Wyoming, and Nebraska. Some areas will soon be seeing some moisture in the form of heavy snow. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter continues to track it.
Taking a look at our forecast map throughout the entire weekend, we can see that, again, the main source of a weather maker is actually going to be the atmospheric river that is still turning off the coast of the Pacific Ocean. Again, the Pacific Northwest, again, going to be centralized, that central area of low pressure. As I put this in motion, we can see that a lot of that moisture comes ashore. Again, we're talking Northern California and parts of Oregon and Washington as well. And what happens is it stays as rain and actually is lifted up by the mountains, where it then freezes and will be falling as snow. Another system we're looking at forming actually is going to be for the second half of the weekend. Right around Sunday, we do have this big burst of moisture that's going to be a warm front followed by some cooler air out to our west. And actually what that's going to do is bring some rain through much of the heartland there and actually out to the east coast, where everybody will be seeing a nice taste of moisture. And snow is falling in the Sierras. The UC Berkeley Central Sierra Snow Lab providing an update yesterday, saying they've already seen almost 3 inches of snow, and they're expecting up to 12 inches of snow over the next 24 hours. And then by Sunday, up to 4 feet. Great to see for all those who love those big mountain snows. Have more on your forecast coming up.
And you may have noticed this, the cash market for fed cattle has been sharply higher this week, which pushed live cattle futures into new highs for the move. Cash trade in the South was mostly 91 to 92 live, steady to $2 higher than last week. The North saw dress sales at mostly 300, up $3 from last week's weighted average in Nebraska. And live sales in the North have been equally as strong, especially on the grid.
We saw the cash bids jump from 190 to 191 on up to 193, pretty consistent, and even saw bids at 193. So I wouldn't be surprised. We've been heard some of these sales going off on individuals picking up as much as 195 on up to 198. Not uncommon when they go onto the grid. So pretty strong market in the cash.
Schultz says the market has been on a tear, even though packer margins are in the red from $30 to $60 per head. Now, with the chart breakout on the futures, he says it is possible live cattle could eventually go back and hit those all-time highs. But unfortunately, both the cattle and grains push mostly lower on Thursday. I'll have more on the market moves coming up. And later, we honor a key employee in the dairy business, how he's making a difference at one operation every day.
Coverage of the Milk Business Conference and AgDay is brought to you by Rabo AgriFinance. Discover how local relationship managers and global sector expertise can help you address challenges and seize opportunities. Rabo AgriFinance. Let's talk. Learn more at www.raboag.com.
How much of the food dollar goes back to the farm? USDA's Economic Research Service releasing the latest snapshot looking at the food industry. It says in 2023, just over 25 cents spent on food producers here in the U.S. went to wholesale trade and retail trade. Now that's grocery stores, wholesale clubs, restaurant supply stores, and other food distribution outlets. The farm production share, meanwhile, is 9.1 cents. That's down 0.2 cents from 2022. Well, a nice update in milk markets and product values on Thursday. Brian Doherty is joining us with analysis. And Brian, let's talk about the surge that we saw in milk and products. What's behind it?
So I think there's a couple of things behind it. We talked not too long ago about where cheese prices have gotten down to a value that's just really, really attractive. And you don't always see the market immediately respond, but we're starting to see some response there. Cheese up 5.5 cents yesterday in the spot. Barrels spot blocks up 3 3/4 cents, and then you've got whey prices that have hit their highest level in 2 years. So you're starting to see some interest in the product. You've got a technical market that is finding some short covering and some buying interest, and then the backdrop of that is you got a surge in cattle prices, which again leaves the impression that are you going to cull cows into this, or sell heifers into this, or not breed through? So kind of hitting on all cylinders here in the last 24, 48 hours on the short covering, new buying, and pushing prices to levels that are starting to look a little more attractive. Now, whether we can get up to that level where we saw a couple of months ago, that's debatable. That in part came from the bird flu, and I don't think that we're seeing the impact on bird flu that some had thought we would see with shorter supply. So we're we want to be very close to the knife on this one right here and be prepared to sell or hedge into it.
So when you look at the charts on milk prices, it looks like maybe we put a low in the early part of December, but how much upside really is there?
Yeah, maybe $1 or $2 if we can get some surge in this. What we've been concerned about is just the general economy, whether it can absorb all of this purchasing of higher priced beef. Energy prices are still high. You've got a cold stretch going where heating prices, and then you got Christmas bills and credit card bills and taxes due. So dollars can only get stretched so thin. Now, cheese is a good value, and maybe there's a little more interest in pizza and some cheaper foods versus high-end steaks, but there's probably limited upside. The market has good production per cow, and that's expected to continue. So efficiency, unfortunately, limits upside potential.
Thanks as always, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Starting off with our drought monitor, we can see that the situation is kind of getting a little worse. That is the drought situation, especially when we go up to the central northern plains. We're talking about the Dakotas and, of course, Nebraska there as well, where we're seeing large levels, again, that moderate drought, again, in that beige color, really starting to expand. And again, still dealing with the levels of extreme drought on the border, pretty much going over there to Montana, and actually starting to see a deepening of the exceptional drought down there by El Paso, and we're looking at western Texas there. So something that actually will be changing fairly soon, because we are expecting some moisture coming through, and actually two different forms. One form going to be snowfall, and actually the second form, of course, going to be rain. Here's our estimated snowfall through the next week or so. And as we can see, really going to be heading out west. Again, it's going to be that atmospheric river that's turning off of the coast there, moving on land. And most of these locations, again, Portland, Seattle, they're actually going to be seeing rain at first. It's going to be for those higher elevations, especially out there in the mountains, where they're going to be seeing some really lofty, if you will, accumulations of snow. And again, you can pretty much see the outlines there of the mountains. Carson City looking at a nice slug of snow. They're looking at maybe 6 to maybe even a foot of snow stretching all the way down to Kansas City there. So got to keep that in mind. Temperature this afternoon, not as bad. That Arctic lift is pretty much gone up north. And again, here's your highs for the day. Not too bad whatsoever. St. Cloud, Minnesota, mostly sunny conditions, high of 14 and a low of 11 degrees. Aspen, Colorado, mostly cloudy conditions, 28 degrees and a low of 11 degrees there. And Watertown, New York, 27 degrees, low of 11.
Coming up with new fruits and vegetable varieties isn't unique to America. The Packer's Jennifer Straley takes us back inside One Fruit Breeder's amazing new campus for more on how they're creating new varieties to tempt taste buds around the world in this week's Fresh Produce Fridays.
Today we're back at fruit breeder Bloom Fresh's new $14 million FruitWorks Discovery Center in McFarland, California, where the focus is on natural fruit breeding that elevates the development of new varieties with desirable characteristics.
We have all these new seedlings every year. You don't entirely know what you're going to get. So, our work here is very much trying to identify the very small percentage of those that we think actually have a good combination of characteristics, and they have the combination that would be commercially successful.
And Bloom Fresh isn't just trialing varieties in California. The fruit breeder has test blocks in 12 different countries, all to select the best varieties based on their performance in each of those regions around the world.
That takes years. We might be, working on a variety probably 6 to 8 years after it's selected, before it gets released commercially, just to make sure that it works in a particular location and that it ticks off all the boxes for the growers, for the marketers, for the retailers, for the consumers. So if it's not it's a fast process, it's very slow.
All this work fuels one goal. Bloom Fresh wants to create excitement surrounding grapes in both its labs and test vineyards.
And we've also introduced some novel flavors, things like cotton candy, which we're also trying to make some improvements in. Then we're also always trying to introduce new things like some red flesh varieties, higher health benefits to the varieties.
The grapes give you a glimpse into the amount of work that goes on here. But the cherry program at Bloom Fresh is also robust, focused on low-chill varieties that can be grown in warmer climates.
Traditionally, cherries need a long, cold winter for the buds to develop normally, to break and wound. So we're trying to reduce how much chilling they need in the wintertime.
To push the limits.
Pushing the limits while taking this research to new heights. Owen says these efforts are partially in response to climate resilience, but also to expand growing to new areas like Brazil, where the Bloom Fresh team recently planted cherries for the first time.
We have a pretty large, international team that's, trying to support, the successful introduction and then production of these new varieties. It's very important to us.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, it takes hard work and dedication to make it in the dairy business. And one employee is proving that every day. See why he was recently awarded for his work at this year's Milk Business Conference next.
AgDay is brought to you by Pivot Bio. Protect yield potential with a new mode of action in nitrogen. See how Pivot Bio fits into your fertility plan at talknitrogen.com.
We're celebrating another one of our Milk Business Conference winners. This morning, we're honoring the Employee Excellence Award winner, which is so important with the labor shortage agriculture is currently facing. And this employee has raised the bar for excellence at one dairy operation in Wisconsin. The dairy business is a 24/7 labor of love, which the team at Wisconsin-based Verclair Farms knows well.
Currently, we're milking about 2,400 cows 3 times a day in a parallel parlor. We raise all the young stock until they're 5 months old, and then after 5 months, they get on a truck and head out to Nebraska until about 60 days before they calve. We have a methane digester and run about 3,500 acres of land, and it keeps us all very busy.
To make a dairy run, it takes great employees.
We have 38 full-time employees. We hire seasonal drivers to help when we're hauling manure, making feed, that sort of thing.
But to make a dairy successful, it takes great leadership. And that's what Grinstead found when she hired Joaquin Vasquez 14 years ago. He started as assistant manager and worked his way up to herd manager.
For the last, I would say, 10 years, I've been the herds manager. So I oversee the milking parlor, I oversee the hospital parlor, maternity area, the bedding facility. So I have a few areas that I oversee, and I manage about 25 people.
He says managing cows is easy, but managing people is tough, yet essential. The key is building mutual respect, good communications, and a sense of team.
Figuring out ways as far as how to talk to people, how to approach them, how to deal with situations, but mainly how to continue to gain their trust on me.
He never wants to stop growing as a manager, so he supports educational opportunities for himself and for his employees.
Verclair gives us the opportunity to grow within and just the tools that they provide us with, to do a better job and to get more educated within our roles.
Grinstead says this philosophy is why Vasquez is a model employee and leader who gives 100%.
His positive attitude, willing to learn, willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
She says his efforts set the bar for excellence in their dairy operation.
And he cares about the cows. And we always talk about here at the dairy, every decision we make, first is because of the cows, and second is because of the employees. And Joaquin has that same philosophy without us having to create it. He has that philosophy.
And that's why Grinstead nominated Vasquez for this award.
We just want to really congratulate Joaquin for this award and just thank him for everything he's done to help make Verclair a great place to work, as well as a pretty cool, successful farm that we're very proud of.
And I was very thankful to my team because, you know, even though it's one award, this is for everybody.
Congratulations to Joaquin Vasquez, this year's Milk Business Employee Excellence Award winner. And that's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Michelle Rook. Have yourself a great day out in farm country.